Hey guys, Mike at the Pop Culture Playhouse, and welcome to the latest episode of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. In this week's installment, we're going to take advanced sneak peeks at Disney's August 12th Blu-ray releases that include the two-movie collection of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad with fun and fancy-free special editions of Hercules, Tarzan, and Bedknobs and Broomsticks, plus the 10th anniversary edition of The Three Musketeers starring Mickey, Donald, and Goofy. All this, so sit tight and we'll be back in just a second. Alrighty guys, and welcome back to this week's very special Disney edition of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. The first release we're going to take a look at, of course, streets August 12th, and it's the two-movie collection of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad with fun and fancy-free. Now, these two package films were, of course, released in the 1940s, 1949 and 1947 respectively. At this point in history, the world was combating World War II and everybody was affected, especially the Walt Disney Studios. Some of Walt's previous efforts, like Pinocchio, which of course today is hailed as an all-time Disney classic, was originally met with pretty abysmal box office numbers. People just really weren't spending the money that they used to have now that the war was at their front step. In addition, tons of Disney's animators were of course drafted into the war effort, so Disney and his remaining animators really had to think on their feet and think of ways that they could bring in a steady profit back to the studio while working on a sizable budget. In addition to that, Walt was of course contracted by the government to work on war educational propaganda films, which kept the animators pretty busy and of course was bringing profit into the studio, but not the kind of work that Walt and his animators truly wanted to work on. So these package films were a great entryway to get back to what they were best at doing. The first title that we're going to talk about in this release is of course 1949's The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Now, the first segment in this is, of course, focusing on The Wind in the Willows, which is narrated by Basil Rathbone. It centers on J. Thaddeus Toad, or Mr. Toad, and he is, he has this really big obsession with automobiles, so much that it's driving him crazy to obtain one. Once he finally does, in exchange, for the deed to his very luxurious, house, Toad Hall, things go really, weary for him, and he ending up, in the slammer for the better part of 20 years because, somebody, that was put up on the stand claimed that Mr. Toad sold him the stolen car in exchange for the deed, which of course landed him in jail. With all that, his friends kind of band together to come up with, evidence to kind of get him out, and, tons of funny hijinks ensue in that one. The Wind in the Willows was, of course, a title that everybody is very familiar with, especially if you go to the Disney parks or, specifically Disneyland with Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, still running to this day. The Wind in the Willows was actually one that I don't really remember quite as clearly as the Legend of Sleepy Hollow segment in this one, but it was really, refreshing to kind of sit down and watch it through, fresh eyes, because I really feel like I hadn't seen it in its entirety before, but it's a really fun one, and it's a really great way to take, a literary classic and tell it, in a Disney manner, just in a short form. It works really well. The characters are very memorable, and there's a lot of funny sequences to be seen in this one. Of course, coupled with this one is, of course, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which is narrated by Bing Crosby, and contrary to The Wind in the Willows, where Basil Rathbone does provide a narration, Bing Crosby's narration really takes center stage in this one, where, the characters like Ichabod and everybody don't really utter a word, and it's really Bing Crosby's narration that guides the story. But this is, a film that I actually remember quite vividly. I remember, being read the story in the library, year in and year out during my elementary school days, and they would always show us, the Legend of Sleepy Hollow segment shortly after reading the story. It was really like an annual tradition, and I think a lot of people really grew up watching Disney's interpretation of the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. I feel like that's everybody's, kind of like filmic memory of that tale, and it's done really, really well, just as well as The Wind in the Willows. This one, of course, focuses on Ichabod Crane. He's a school teacher who comes to the sleepy town of Sleepy Hollow, and as he's courting a very, attractive young lady, a fellow man who's trying to woo her himself, gets very jealous and ends up, kind of rivaling with Ichabod. Before long, the Halloween season is upon them, and of course, the Headless Horseman chases down Ichabod Crane, and it's a very surprising film. Disney, for the better part was, really showcased, a brighter, very lighter side of things. But from, now and again, he would showcase things in a very dark manner. There's aspects of Fantasia that are very dark, and the Legend of Sleepy Hollow segment is very dark and deep because the ending is very open-ended. You don't really know if Ichabod Crane survives or if he was in fact killed or, chased down to his death by the Headless Horseman. They just kind of say that nobody really knows, but there are rumors floating around that, he moved on to another village and married a widow with a ton of kids, but they don't really say definitively if that's true. So I kind of like that. It's got great animation in this one, and Bing Crosby's narration is really good. So this one still holds up for me, 25, 26 plus years later, so I really, really enjoy that one. And again, it's a really cool way to take literary classics and kind of, put them through the Disney funnel, but present them in a short form manner. So really great stuff. Coupled in this two-movie collection with The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad is, of course, 1947's Fun and Fancy Free. And this is another package film that is broken into two segments. The first one is, of course, Bongo, which focuses on a circus bear who's really phenomenal at his act and routine, but is treated pretty badly when he's off stage. He kind of longs for a life outside of, the cages and the circus life, and wants to be with his own kind in nature, in the wilderness. So he escapes from the circus train, and he, kind of tries to find his footing in the wildlife, and before long, he, falls in love with a female bear, and some hijinks ensue when a not-so-friendly other bear who is attracted to this female bear comes along, so Bongo kind of gets in these really funny, hijinks with him while he's trying to woo this female bear and find his footing along the way in his new environment. It's a really fun little short film, and one that I felt was very reminiscent to something like Dumbo, where, of course, that was a circus elephant, but here it is a circus bear, kind of, longing for something more in their life, and, want to be taken, in a different light than what they've kind of been, come to be known by as. But that is actually a segment that I didn't really have any memories of. So I think that this was actually my first experience watching Bongo. I can definitely say that Fun and Fancy Free as a whole, this was really the first time that I sat down and watched it, because while I did remember, vague instances of the second segment that you're going to find in this package film, I never remember watching Bongo, so this was a really great way to catch up with Fun and Fancy Free. But after Bongo ends, you kind of, you get introduced to a short little live-action segment, which of course transitions into the final segment, which is Mickey and the Beanstalk, which of course is a very, Disney interpretation of the classic Jack and the Beanstalk. It has Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, who are working in a really, beautiful village known as Happy Valley, and this golden singing harp is, of course, stolen by this huge giant. So, when Mickey and Donald and Goofy are really on their last dime and they're starving, Mickey trades their cow for 3 magic beans. The other 2, of course, think that he's nuts and end up getting into a fight with him, and the 3 magic beans go rolling out off underneath the house. Of course, growing a huge beanstalk which leads up to the clouds and a castle in the sky where, of course, the giant is residing. The three go up there and try and retrieve the golden harp and kind of bring happiness back to their little village. This is a great short, and like I said, I did remember bits and pieces of it growing up, but I can confidently say that this is probably the first time that I've seen Mickey and the Beanstalk in its entirety, and I had such a great time with it. I think that the Disney Studios really handles the literary adaptations really, really well, and Jack and the Beanstalk just seemed like a natural fit for them to do it. And I think that it was really great for them to put Mickey, Donald, and Goofy in this one because their chemistry amongst them, just fits really well. And Fun and Fancy Free is also of particular note to Disney historians because this was actually the last time that Walt Disney would provide the voice of Mickey Mouse in Mickey and the Beanstalk because he was just getting way too preoccupied and way too busy with the other things, going on, of course, in the studio. So yeah, this was the last time that Walt actually provided the voice for the character. So for that reason alone, it's a very memorable and iconic entry in the animated Disney canon. But it's a fine little package film, and there's such great animation in this one. I particularly like when the three of them are sleeping as the beanstalk is growing, and there's just all these really clever and ingenious ways of how the beanstalk is kind of growing through them, all the while they're sleeping through it as it's kind of going through their covers and going through their bed and rising them up, but none of them awake from it. It's just really, really clever, and it's really a testament to just how creative and crafty the Disney animators were. Of course, these two films are presented in their aspect ratio of 1.33 by 1, and I know while more recent Disney efforts on Blu-ray have been guilty of using appropriate uses of DNR and then some misuses of DNR, I'm happy to report that there is no DNR misuse whatsoever in either of these two package films, and both of them look really breathtaking. They're very vibrant and very colorful. There are some flakes and speckles found in the backgrounds, most noticeably in the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, but it's seeing those flakes and speckles which really make you appreciate the integrity of the animation, and really, kind of reminds you that they didn't really go crazy or do anything, any over abuse with any DNR, so everybody can kind of rest easy on that front. But like I said, the colors look really beautiful. I felt like I had never seen The Legend of Sleepy Hollow until I popped in this Blu-ray. Just everything is very vibrant and very lush. The backgrounds look particularly great in the bongo segment in Fun and Fancy Free. I mean, there's just so much scope and depth in them that they just look really, really breathtaking and very eye-popping. So I really liked how the films looked. I think that they were cleaned up really brilliantly, and of course they pop so magnificently with so many bright and bold colors to see. The DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 mixes are of course really great too. Audio comes in without a glitch. The great music and song numbers that you'll find in these come across very vibrant, and they come across very clear and crisp, which is exactly what you want to hear in any Blu-ray release. So all around, technically speaking, these two package films look and sound really spectacular. In regards to special features, there's not much in the way, but there is only one special feature, but it's an entire feature-length film. It's 1941's The Reluctant Dragon on Blu-ray for the first time. That was a cool little film that found Robert Benchley actually touring the Walt Disney Studios. This, of course, was at a time, when the Disney animators were on strike, so this was another effort where, Walt had to kind of come out with something in order to, kind of bring profit back into the studio and keep people working that, stuck by his side. Unfortunately, it didn't do too hot at the box office, but it is a really cool little time capsule and a showcase of Robert Benchley touring the Walt Disney Studios and all the different departments, the animation, the inking department. It's really cool, and it's presented in black and white and then color, and there's a bunch of animated segments in it, so it makes for a really cool time capsule of seeing the animators, doing their craft, and of course Walt Disney, making appearances in it. So I really like that, and I think that it's a great inclusion in this series of package films. Overall, I really had such a great time revisiting both of these package films. I know that some people probably were a little disappointed that these two films weren't broken up and getting individual Blu-ray releases, but honestly, they are two package films, and they have a slant towards, short-form retellings of fairy tales for the better part. And, other package films that Disney was releasing at this time, like The Three Caballeros and Saludos Amigos, really had more of a musical Latin American vibe, which, would make sense for those two to be eventually combined. And then there were, of course, Make Melody Time, and I think it was another Make Mayan Music or something like that, but those two were very slanted towards a very musical angle. So I could definitely see those two being collected together in one Blu-ray collection. So The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad matched with Fun and Fancy Free definitely makes sense because they both were package films and really had a major emphasis on, short-form retellings of classic literary tales. So I think that both of them fit very nicely, and they make for a really great collection. So all of that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging on this one. As you can see, the two-movie collection banner on there. This is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack, and of course the original poster arts are presented front and center there. And then when you flip this one over, you can see a description of both films on the back, and of course a little disclaimer letting you know that The Reluctant Dragon is included in here on Blu-ray for the first time, along with the two features as well. Of course, you got Jiminy Cricket on there, too, who, kicks off Fun and Fancy Free, which is great. He's kind of serves as, like, the host of the wraparound segments, which is great. Again, here's the front there, and, of course, the same little images on the back. Of course, you get your Disney movie rewards code, and then you have two DVDs stacked on, one on top of the other of The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad and Fun and Fancy Free. And then when you take your Disney reward code out, you get, of course, the Blu-ray right there. So overall, guys, I had a great time revisiting these package films from the 1940s. I think that it's a really freeing way of the animators to express themselves. In a similar form to how Dumbo is kind of looked on for, or at least being appreciated for, its very loose and free animation style, as opposed to the very meticulous and perfectionist nature of a lot of Walt's other animated classics. So for that alone, I really, really enjoy these films. I think that they're brilliantly animated, and they tell some really great stories. So definitely scoop these up if you're interested. They're available August 12th. Alrighty guys, and the next title that we're going to take a look at is the special edition release of 1971's Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Now this film stars Angela Lansbury as an apprentice witch who, along with three kids and a cynical con man, embark on a very ambitious journey to locate the missing ingredients to a magic spell in order to aid the defense of Britain against the impending Nazi invasion. Now this film was actually a first-time watch for me, and I was pretty surprised to learn, even being a big Disney aficionado, that Angela Lansbury's history with Disney actually began 20 years before her voice talent in Beauty and the Beast. That was something completely new to me. So of course, sitting down with something like Bedknobs and Broomsticks was a real treat for me, because I've just never actually seen it. I've heard things about it throughout the years. I've known the principal players that were involved in it, but for whatever reason, it always passed me by. So it's a real treat to see Disney giving it the Blu-ray treatment it so rightfully deserves. Interestingly enough, this film did actually get released many years after the success of Mary Poppins, and reteams a lot of the creative talent behind that, including director Robert Stevenson, who of course was no stranger to the Walt Disney Studios. Of course, he worked on such films as The Absent-Minded Professor, The Love Bug, and of course the iconic Mary Poppins, before moving on to Bedknobs and Broomsticks. In addition, the musical talent of the creative duo, the Sherman Brothers, is implemented in this one, and of course they also add David Tomlinson to the cast in this film, who of course played Mr. Banks in Mary Poppins. But this was actually a really fun film. You could definitely tell that Disney was absolutely trying to capture that lightning in a bottle that they had with Mary Poppins by focusing on, an adult woman who is, taking on, kids on a very eccentric, magical journey to recover something about themselves, and of course implementing and blending the worlds of live action and animation together. So the comparisons between the two films have been there for, decades, and, it's very transparent. You can kind of see why Disney would want to recapture the magic and success of Mary Poppins. Suffice to say, while Bedknobs and Broomsticks is very fun and very charming, it definitely doesn't capture, the overall charm and magic that the original Mary Poppins had, but Bedknobs and Broomsticks still is pretty good, and this is coming from somebody that sat down with this for a first-time watch. I found a lot to enjoy in this one. I liked all the principal actors in this one. Angela Lansbury was really great. I really loved that she was like this apprentice witch, and she was actually using witchcraft and the magic that she was learning for the defense of Britain, in 1940s England. So I thought that was a really cool emphasis on the story, and, a really nice way to put, kind of this escapist fantasy angle against the backdrop of the war. I just thought that was very charming and very cool. Of course, David Tomlinson is really great as the cynical con man who Angela Lansbury and the three kids that she's been kind of put in charge of team up with. He's always great, very funny, very charming, and a lot of physical humor from him, which makes for, a lot of great stuff. Of course, comparing yet again to Mary Poppins, there is a lot of, live action and animation used in it when they go to the island of Nambumbu. Very cool sequence, and that's one thing where Bedknobs and Broomsticks obviously perfected throughout the years. The blending of the live action and animation sequences definitely have improved greatly since Mary Poppins. So all of those look very bright, vibrant, and they look, a lot more realistic than they did in Mary Poppins. So very, very cool stuff in that one. Overall, I was very pleased with the viewing experience with Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Again, it's not, it definitely doesn't exceed the overall charm and magic that Mary Poppins had, but Bedknobs and Broomsticks definitely still serves as a great entry in the live-action Disney canon from the 1970s. So definitely good stuff, and I'm very happy to see that Disney put it out on the Blu-ray format. Now, technically speaking, this film looks really great. Of course, this is from 1971, and there's a really nice, healthy layer of grain in this one. Again, no DNR misuse whatsoever. Skin tones come across really good. This film isn't particularly overly colorful, but there are some sequences that are actually of a particular note. The Portobello Road sequence is really great, where there's some great dance and choreography sequences matched with some great Sherman Brothers songs, and the dancers involved in those sequences are wearing some really bright and vibrant colors that come across really well on the Blu-ray transfer. A lot of great detail seen in that one, and of course when Angela Lansbury, the kids, and David Tomlinson make their journey to the Isle of Nambubu, and of course, the animation sequences underwater, and then when they get to the surface on the island, look very, very good. I mean, very bright, very vibrant, a huge step up from the animation in Mary Poppins. Well, that was good. I mean, but of course, many years have passed, and the animation and the blending of those two mediums definitely have improved in that one. So I was very floored and very happy, with the contrast and the boldness of the colors. So it looked very, very good. In addition to that, there's quite a spread of special features in this one, including the Music Magic, the Sherman Brothers featurette, which includes a behind-the-scenes featurette with the Sherman Brothers and Angela Lansbury, among a few other people, talking about, the origins of the project and the music and the musical numbers in it. You also have 5 enchanting deleted and extended songs, including a deleted song called A Step in the Right Direction. In addition, you have 8 magical deleted and extended scenes, a David Tomlinson recording session, the Wizards of Special Effects featurette, and theatrical trailer. So quite a lot of stuff to cut into after you check out the film. So great stuff that Disney provided all of that. All that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging on this one. As I mentioned earlier, this is a special edition release, including a Blu-ray, DVD, and digital HD code. Some really great cover art there with, of course, the floating bed, which is very key in the sequence. That's how, of course, Angela Lansbury and the kids, travel, using, her witchcraft powers, and, of course, the animated friends that they encounter on the island of Nambubu. So very cool stuff. And then when you flip that over, you get some cool some screen grabs from the film, a description of the film, and of course the special features that I just ratted off to you guys right there. So very cool stuff. And then when you pop that off, again, you kind of get that same one-sheet cover art right there. And again, the same on the back. And then when you crack this open, you do get that always, plain blue Blu-ray disc art for the releases. And of course, you get the Disney Movie Magic reward code over here. And then right underneath that, you do have a DVD copy of Bedknobs and Broomsticks. So overall, a pretty nice package. But like I said, guys, 1971's Bedknobs and Broomsticks was a first-time watch for me. And while the comparisons to Mary Poppins are going to be made time and time again through history, it's still a pretty charming and magical film. And while it doesn't exceed the impact and, the memorable, effect that Mary Poppins had on us, it's still very charming, and it definitely, presents some really wonderful performance matched with some great blending of live action and animation, which is an obvious step up from the animation and live action sequences seen in Mary Poppins. So if you're a big fan of Mary Poppins and you haven't checked out Bedknobs and Broomsticks ever or haven't seen it in a few years, I would definitely recommend it because I feel like it'll be up your alley if you enjoyed, of course, the P.L. Travers Disney adaptation. So if you're interested, it is available August 12th from Disney. Alrighty guys, and next up we're going to take a look at the special edition release of 1997's Hercules. Marking the 35th animated feature-length film from Walt Disney Studios, Hercules is directed by Ron Clements and John Musker, previously responsible for such Disney gems as The Great Mouse Detective, Beauty and the Beast, and of course, Aladdin. Now, of course, Hercules is set in ancient Greece and focuses on the Greek god Zeus, who he and his wife have just been lucky to welcome a newborn baby into the world, whom they've named Hercules. Everybody is very joyful and happy about the latest addition to their family, all except Zeus's brother Hades, who is the lord of the underworld. When Hades schemes a plan to overthrow his brother, he figures that there's going to be a planetary constellation in 18 years where it's going to be possible for his evil minions that have been locked in captivity to finally be freed, just as long as Hercules does not interfere. So Hades, along with some of his fellow minions, hatch a plan to rid Hercules to the world of the mortals, leaving him completely helpless of his powers, all except his superhuman strength. The film jumps ahead a few years where Hercules is like a struggling teenage kid, and he feels like an outcast with this really freakish amount of strength, and he just feels like an absolute outcast and just different in this world of, seemingly normal people. When he finally does figure out that he is actually the son of a Greek god, he's informed by his father Zeus that he will get his godlike powers restored as long as he can prove himself to be a true hero in the world of the mortals. So Hercules sets out on this journey to team up with a mythical creature named Phil, who's brilliantly voiced by Danny DeVito, who's going to train him to be this world-class hero. All along the way, Hercules encounters a woman, Meg, whom he falls deep in love with, but actually she is working for the evil Hades, in a pact that Meg kind of sold her soul to him in exchange to save an unfaithful lover of hers previously. So all the while, Hercules is just trying to prove himself to be a hero in amongst this world of normal people to restore his godlike powers and, of course, be with Meg and live happily ever after, essentially. Hercules was a really interesting film as it came during the Disney Renaissance that, predominantly lasted from 1989 with the success of The Little Mermaid all the way to 1999, right around the time of Tarzan's release. So when Hercules came along, it was a real way for directors Ron Clements and John Musker to make a superhero movie for Disney, and it was definitely a film like Hercules where Disney was definitely trying to skew more towards the male audience or the young boy audience, because previously, while other animated gems from this Disney Renaissance certainly had crossover appeal, based on the massive box office numbers and their overall popularity, the central protagonists were mainly girls or princesses or damsels in distress. So Hercules was a nice change of pace where you had a male in the protagonist role, and he was a very strong man and very superhero-like. So it was definitely a departure in that sense. Overall, I really enjoyed Hercules for what it was. Like I said, it was definitely a breath of fresh air. Sitting next to things like The Little Mermaid or Beauty and the Beast, which are some of my favorites from this decade. But Hercules is really fun. one of the things that I most appreciate about it is the animation itself. I think that it looks really beautiful. There's a really great color scheme throughout its entirety. There's also a really cool usage of CG computer effects mashed with 2D animation. There's a sequence specifically where Hercules is combating this dragon-like creature who, you know, he slices his head off and then the creature reemerges with 3 heads now. At first it seems a little off-putting and unusual to see you know, a CG kind of creation next to 2D animation, but after a few moments, it actually looks really cool and is definitely, you know, again, another fresh, you know, breath of fresh air in the traditional 2D animation style. So it was very cool to see that. In addition, the layouts and backgrounds are really breathtaking in this film, specifically in Hades', you know, underworld realm, which is just very dark and gloomy and, you know, just very foreboding. I really loved the backgrounds and thought there was a lot of great depth and scope in that one, so really great stuff to be seen in that. Overall, the people, it's really the supporting characters in this one that really make the film as special as it is. While I did appreciate, you know, Hercules and kind of, you know, the emotional backdrop that came along with who he is. You know, he's been, you know, vanquished to, you know, the world of mortals where, you know, he obviously feels out of place and he feels like an outcast and he just wants to know who his real parents are. So I really liked that they kind of padded that, whereas, you know, other, you know, film adaptations of the Hercules character, he's kind of seen as just this, you know, muscle-bound brute who doesn't really have much emotional context to him, and I really think that Disney tried to pad that, you know, in their animated adaptation and that. But, you know, overall, I feel like he could have benefited from a little bit more depth in his character because the supporting characters that surround him are just that much more lively and entertaining to watch, including the mythical creature Phil, who I mentioned is of course voiced by Danny DeVito. He's absolutely hilarious in it. You know, he feels very reminiscent to, you know, Mickey, in the Rocky films. That's really how it is in this film. He's like, you know, the advisor or coach to Hercules, you know, trying to get him in training and try and make him the best hero that he possibly can be. In addition, you know, probably the best thing about this film is James Woods' voice talent of the evil Hades. He's just absolutely breathtaking in this one. I just love him. He's very snarky, he's witty, he's very fast-talking, just great. I just really, really loved James Woods' efforts in this one, and I really liked the character design of him. He's actually one of my favorite villains from this decade in Disney animation. He's just got such a great look and design to him with his blue, fiery head and, you know, these sharp teeth and just dark gray robe and stuff. I just really liked how he visually looked, but, you know, again, it's something with Hercules where I did appreciate that they padded him with a little bit more, you know, emotional context, but I think that he would have benefited that much more if they would have pushed a little bit more depth, because as it is, the supporting characters really steal the show from him. But overall, it's very action-packed. It's got a great love story between him and Meg, and, you know, a great message at the heart of it. So overall, it's a great little film that is, you know, definitely is skewed more towards, you know, boys and, you know, fans that would probably enjoy superhero films or something. And so it's, you know, when you compare it to other things like Beauty and the Beast or The Little Mermaid, it's definitely a departure, but in a very good way. I like this one, and I think that it sits really well, you know, in, you know, the context of the Disney Renaissance decade. Overall, the Blu-ray release looks really good. Obviously, this is a more recent effort from the Disney canon. It's not quite 20 years old, but it's getting there. But, you know, like I said, it definitely is one of the newer, you know, animated films to make the leap to Blu-ray, and it looks fantastic. Like I said, there's a great color scheme in this one, and it just gets, you know, sold across in the transfer so beautifully. I mean, colors are very bright, bold, and crisp. They really just pop off the screen. Black levels look really good, you know, especially in Hades' underworld layer where it's, you know, really draped in, you know, blacks and dark grays and stuff. So everything looks really great there. The DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 mix sounds really great too. Dialogue comes across with no hitches whatsoever. And of course the great songs provided by, you know, the great Alan Menken, who previously was responsible for the music in The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin, provides the songs and music in this one, and they're all really good stuff, you know, very up his alley, you know, in his spirit and his style of song. So those come across very, bold and very loud through your speakers. So they're definitely a highlight in the mix. In the form of special features, there's not a crazy amount. There is a From Zero to Hero sing-along, there is a Ricky Martin music video, and there's a making of Hercules, which is just shy of 10 minutes. I really would have loved to see like an audio commentary from the directors on this one, but as it seems, it doesn't really seem like Disney has been providing any new special features unless an animated film makes the leap to the Diamond collection. So for what it is, nice to have any special features at all, but visually and how it sounds is really spot on. I couldn't have asked for anything more than that. But overall, Hercules is a really fun time. Again, definitely skewed towards, the male demographic or, the younger boys. And while it didn't light up the box office like the previous, Disney animated films, earlier in the decade, it did pretty well enough to warrant itself a direct-to-video prequel entitled Hercules Zero to Hero, which served as a pilot episode to Hercules the Animated Series, which ran for 2 seasons from 1998 to 1999 on the Disney Channel. So the film definitely had some legs and, definitely had enough to warrant itself an animated show. So it definitely is a fun time and, some great animation, some great action-packed stuff in this one. And of course, the voice talent from Danny DeVito and of course James Wood is really, the scene stealers and the best things going for it in Hercules. But all of that said, let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging. As you can see, this is a special edition Blu-ray DVD digital HD combo pack. I really, really love this cover that they used for Hercules. Everybody is front and center, Hercules and Meg, and then of course Hercules is faithful horse companion Pegasus. You have Phil right down in the corner, down over here. That's voiced by Danny DeVito. And then, of course, some of Hades' evil minions down there. But yeah, I really like that. Very bright and colorful cover. And of course, it's embossed like all of Disney's slipcovers are. And then when you flip that over, you get some cool screen grabs, a plot synopsis, and a little rundown of the scant special features that you're going to find in this one. And then when, of course, you take this slipcover off, it's the same image on the front and, of course, on the back, too. And then when you crack this open, again, that always, reliable, plain blue Blu-ray disc art from Disney. You get your movie magic rewards code there. And then on this side, you get the DVD copy as well. So overall, pretty nice packaging. Like I said, guys, 1997's Hercules is a fine addition to Ron Clements and John Musker's already impressive directorial career with Disney Animation Studios, and it's a fun one to revisit. I'm really happy to have this on Blu-ray. I know plenty of people have been wanting it, and again, while it didn't light up the box office like some of, the earlier animated gems in the decade, it's still a really fun one and has a lot more action in it than, some of the other ones, so for that alone, it's worth checking out, and of course, James Woods' voice talent and Danny DeVito's is really great stuff. They're the best things in this film, and just overall great animation, too. So if you're interested in continuing to, bulk up your Disney animation Blu-ray collection, Hercules is available August 12th. Alrighty guys, and next up, also available on August 12th, is the special edition release of 1999's Tarzan. Now, while not technically an anniversary edition, it's hard to believe that Tarzan is celebrating its 15th anniversary this year. It's amazing how fast time goes by. This film is actually one of my favorite films from the Disney Renaissance decade of the 1990s, and a film that many people hailed as really the final massive success for that Renaissance before Disney entered the new millennium and had quite a few misfires and never really captured the great success that they had in the previous decade. But for those of you that have never seen Tarzan, it of course is an adaptation of the iconic Edgar Rice Burroughs story, focusing on a newborn baby called Tarzan, who is adopted by a family of gorillas after his family, or his parents rather, are brutally murdered in the jungles. Many years go by and he adapts to their lifestyle, kind of mimics their mannerisms and their way of life. So when time passes and humans enter into their very secluded jungle area, Tarzan must decide whether he's going to be leading a new civilized life with his new fun-loving human friends or remain with his gorilla family. Like I said, this is actually one of my favorite films from the Disney Renaissance decade. My all-time favorite of that decade is, of course, Beauty of the Beast, with, kind of a the more cliched ones like Aladdin and The Lion King. But Tarzan I've always really, really liked because in, a similar fashion to Hercules, this is definitely kind of continuing in that vein by having a story centered around a male protagonist, and it's definitely a little bit more action-packed than, something like Beauty and the Beast or The Little Mermaid. So I think I really connected with that, and the Tarzan character has just been so, iconic, in literature, that it was a natural fit to see Disney take a stab at a character like him, and I think that it came at a right time, kind of following in the footsteps of Hercules to try and attract more of, a boy or, a male crowd, and I think it worked out because it was a huge success at the box office, critically and with audience members, but it also was actually one of Disney's higher budgeted animated releases at the time, ranging in around the $130 million mark. In addition, this film was actually co-directed by Kevin Lima, who, is of course no stranger to Disney, responsible for such movies as the Goofy movie, 102 Dalmatians, where he would re-team with one of his Tarzan cast members, Glenn Close, and Enchanted. And it's also co-directed as well by Chris Buck, who would go on to direct Surf's Up, and last year he co-directed a little sleeper hit that some of you guys may have heard of called Frozen. Not many people may have heard of that one, but he co-directed that. So, a lot of talent in this film. That's one thing that I think probably is really striking to me, and I think one of the main reasons that I hold this film in such high regard. It's the really unique and cutting-edge animation that was utilized in this film. They used a very, cutting-edge technique known as deep canvas, where they use a CG background and implement it with the 2D animation style. So it kind of gives a very three-dimensional effect, and it's, most prominent when Tarzan is swinging, from tree to tree on the vines, and when he's sliding down different tree trunks and stuff. It's an amazingly cool kind of visualization that you're seeing unfold. They would kind of implement that and bring that over to Atlantis, the Lost Empire, and Treasure Planet, but it was never done quite as well as they did in Tarzan. It just looks so, breathtaking and really refreshing to the eye. It's just, very unlike anything you had seen up until that point in time in animation. So I think that probably accounts to one of the reasons of the higher budget, because, Disney was really at the cutting edge of this and really developing, this technique and technology for the purpose of Tarzan. Again, similar to Hercules, this is definitely a little bit more action-packed and has, the male protagonist going for it, so I really liked that angle of it, and, it's got such a great voice cast in that. Disney is always known for getting such a great cast of voice talents in this one, and Tarzan is no exception. You have Tony Goldwyn doing the voice of Tarzan, and then he's surrounded by the likes of Glenn Close, Lance Henriksen, Rosie O'Donnell, who plays a tomboy gorilla and best friend to Tarzan. She's really hilarious in it, but just a lot of great voices all around. They really brought something special to their characters and made the film a really rewarding experience. Another thing of really noteworthy to mention is, of course, the phenomenal soundtrack in Tarzan, which is provided by songs from Phil Collins, who is one of my favorite artists of all time. Earlier in the video, the intro to the video, I had Strangers Like Me playing, which is a great song from this soundtrack, and Tarzan actually managed to win an Academy Award for Best Song that year for a song that Phil Collins provided. But phenomenal soundtrack, a great story, has much more, emphasis on action, and just great colorful animal characters as well as human characters. So it's a great blending that Disney has been so successful in a lot of their other previous animated films. Tarzan continued, just like Hercules, to have legs after this film concluded. There was a television show called The Legend of Tarzan that ran from 2001 to 2003, and then it was followed up by a 2005 direct-to-video prequel entitled Tarzan 2. And as if that were not enough, Tarzan actually made the leap to Broadway in 2006, which was a big hit with theater goers before closing a little more than a year later. But, Tarzan, again, is one of my favorite Disney films from the 1990s. It's got action, it's got great characters, it's got humor, and of course it's got a lot of great heart and a phenomenal soundtrack. So yeah, I highly recommend checking out Tarzan. Definitely one of my favorites. And I can't be sure if this was rumored or if it was maybe, considered at one point, but in the wake of Disney giving theatrical 3D releases to some of their other films from the Disney Renaissance, like Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King, I thought I had heard that Tarzan was going to make the leap theatrically to 3D, but I think after, kind of the lower box office that Disney was bringing in with those re-releases, they may have put a nail in the coffin on that, which is a shame, because like I said, that deep canvas technique, which would have really lent something to getting a 3D release. So I really hope that Disney reconsiders putting this out in 3D again, because this is definitely one film that would benefit of that, because I can totally imagine that, the immersive experience of, swinging through the vines and the trees with Tarzan would look, that much, cooler in the 3D format. All that said, guys, the film looks phenomenal on Blu-ray, as to be expected. This, again, is, a more recent, animated film from Disney's library, being only 15 years, so colors are very bold and crisp. That deep canvas technique that I keep mentioning looks really awesome. Like I said, it's computer-generated graphics or animation matched with the 2D animation, so it's very breathtaking and comes across in such crisp clarity on this Blu-ray. So really great stuff. And of course, the DTS HD Master Audio 5.0 mix is another phenomenal one. Dialogue comes across without any issues whatsoever. The loud roars from the various animals in the jungle come across very booming on your speakers, and again, that great soundtrack provided by Phil Collins comes across really loud and very boisterous. So I'm very pleased on the video and audio end of this. In addition, there's a ton of special features to cut into, including deleted scenes, a research trip to Africa, the making of the music, a You'll Be in My Heart music video performed by Phil Collins, a Disneypedia living in the jungle, and then there's a bunch of little mini featurettes about the history of the character, of course the animation development, and then an audio commentary with the directors and the producer on this one. So pretty stacked with special features. It looks and sounds great, and it's hands down one of my favorite efforts from Disney from the 1990s. So all of that said, let's go ahead and cut into this packaging, shall we? Again, Disney always providing these great slipcovers on their releases. The special edition banner. This is a Blu-ray, DVD, digital HD code combo pack. I absolutely adore that cover. I think it's so great. Absolutely encapsulates the story and the tone of the film so great. Tarzan front and center with all of his jungle and human friends down at the corner, and then of course the great Tarzan logo front and center. And then when you flip that over, again, you get some cool images throughout the film. A synopsis of the film, and then of course you get the list of some of the special features that you'll find, of which there are many to cut into after you check this one out. And then when you remove that slipcover, of course the same cover art on the front and in the back again. And then when you cut this one open, you, of course, have that plain blue Blu-ray disc art, and then your Disney Movie Magic reward code. And then when you take those out, you have the gray DVD copy right there for you. So, again, guys, celebrating its 15th anniversary, Tarzan still holds up for me, if not better than when I, had seen it many years ago. It's one of my all-time favorite films from Disney's animated canon from the 1990s, and it was such a great joy to kind of revisit it in such an impressive Blu-ray transfer with a great audio treatment and a ton of special features to cut into. So, again, guys, it's available August 12th. Alrighty guys, and the final title that we're going to discuss in this week's very special Disney edition of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up also streets August 12th, and it's presented in a 10th Anniversary Edition release, The Three Musketeers. Starring Mickey, Donald, and Goofy as a group of small-time janitors with big dreams of becoming musketeers themselves. When the corrupt musketeer captain, who's played by Pegleg Pete, hatches a scheme to kidnap the princess, who's played by Minnie Mouse, in order to become the king of the village himself, Mickey, Donald, and Goofy get their act together to become musketeers in order to save the princess and take back the city that is theirs. This is a direct-to-video feature that I actually had never seen before, which made Disney's, inclusion of, bringing it to the Blu-ray format all the more surprising, but I'm happy to report that this film is actually a ton of fun. It was directed by Donovan Cook, who actually is responsible for one of my favorite underrated direct-to-video sequels, Return to Neverland. The Three Musketeers is definitely in the vein of, a lot of the older Disney cartoons from the 30s and 40s that found, these high-profile characters like Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, involved in, these literary adaptations just through the Disney cycle of things. And, it's actually kind of amazing that The Three Musketeers wasn't, a story that wasn't kind of adapted for Disney many, many years before that. So another thing that's very interesting to note in The Three Musketeers is that it's the first feature-length animated film that all three of these characters appeared in together. So very interesting stuff indeed. I enjoyed this film a lot. It's a very breezy watch, clocking in at just under 68 minutes, but it's a very timeless story and, really harkens back to, that old school way of storytelling, in the older Disney cartoons of the 30s and 40s. Obviously with this being released in 2004, Disney was, having a ton of success with their collaborations with Pixar, in the wake of things like Toy Story, A Bug's Life, and what have you. So, Disney, the Disney characters like Mickey, Donald, and Goofy, weren't quite as prominent for, movies like they had been, decades before that. So The Three Musketeers is a real return to form of classic storytelling that these characters were so used to being presented in, decades before this. But, I had such a fun time with The Three Musketeers. All the characters are obviously, they fit back into their old personalities like a glove. They're all hilarious and get themselves in a ton of great hijinks, and there's a lot of great action in this too. Of course, all three of them being, the Musketeers, they get themselves involved in quite a lot of swordplay with Peg-Leg Pete and his evil crony, so a lot of fun stuff to be had in that. In addition, the three stars are surrounded by a lot of other classic Disney alumni. Of course, Peg-Leg Pete plays the corrupt musketeer captain. Minnie Mouse plays the princess of the village, and then you also have people like Daisy Duck and Clarabelle too. So very cool to see a whole alumni of classic Disney characters in another literary adaptation through the Disney cycle. So I really like that. This is actually a really awesome direct-to-video effort that I think more people should really check out if they've never seen it before. Because if you love the older cartoons that starred these these characters in their own adaptations of classic tales, then The Three Musketeers is definitely going to be up your alley. All that said, the film looks really beautiful in Blu-ray. It's only 10 years old, so of course, you're not going to have any issues of any scratches or dirt and debris. It's a pitch-perfect transfer in that respect. Colors are very bold and crisp. Everything looks very great and colorful, just the way you want to see a Disney animated film. The DTS HD Master Audio 5.1 mix, again, sounds just as good as all the other Disney releases. In this week's episode, audio comes across really great. The music, which is a lot of classical songs that Disney put lyrics to, kind of making their own kind of Frankenstein versions of these songs, come across really loud and very vibrant in the mix, and they're really fun songs too, so a great little, spread of songs to be found in The Three Musketeers. In addition, there's a great little spread of special features, including a Get Up and Dance featurette. You have deleted scenes with commentary, sing-along songs, and a cast commentary to go around as well. So pretty nice spread for a direct-to-video film, and a very surprising turn to see Disney celebrating something like this on their 10th anniversary, but nonetheless a very welcome one and a true return to form for the kind of classic storytelling that Disney was more known for early on in their history. So I really had a great time with this one, and I'm very happy to see Disney, kind of bring this one to the Blu-ray format. All that said, let's take a look at the packaging on here. As you can see, this is a Blu-ray DVD Digital HD combo pack, and of course the 10th anniversary edition banner right up top. Great poster art. I love the three iconic characters there in the Musketeers outfit with their swords raised high. You see Minnie Mouse right there in the castle, and then a few of the other characters that you find in this one, Pluto and of course Peg-Leg Pete. And then when you flip that one over, you get a few other images from the film, including, Minnie Mouse as the princess with her newfound love, Mickey. You get a synopsis of the film and a kind of a brief rundown of the few special features that you're going to find in this release. And then once again, when you take this slipcover off, you're going to find the same poster art on the Blu-ray case there, and the same back cover art with the same images as well. And then when you crack this one open, in similar fashion to the other ones, it's that plain Blu-ray disc card with your, your Disney Movie Magic rewards code right there. And then when you take the flyers away for that, you get the gray DVD copy right there. So there you go. Again, guys, this was a first-time watch for me. I had never even heard of this or seen this before Disney put it onto the Blu-ray format, but I'm really happy that they did because, like I said, it's a real return to form for these characters to be in a, Disney kind of interpretation of a classic story, and it's amazing to think that the Three Musketeers wasn't done by Disney before that, but Mickey, Donald, and Goofy are great in the roles. I think that it's a great adaptation of the story, very funny, great action sequences, and again, a really fun spread of classical songs mixed with newly added lyrics. So a really fun film to revisit, especially by direct-to-video standards. I was very surprised in that one. So if you guys are interested in checking out The Three Musketeers, it streets August 12th from Disney. Okay, guys, and that's going to conclude this week's Disney edition of the Blu-ray DVD Weekly Wrap-Up. As always, thanks again for tuning in and for supporting Mike's Pop Culture Playhouse. But before I let you go, I do want to inform you of something that I overlooked in regards to the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. That film in particular will be receiving a separate solo release, but unfortunately Fun and Fancy Free and the special feature of the Reluctant Dragon won't be included in that solo release. So if you're a Disney animation completist, the two-movie collection that I reviewed in this episode is definitely the way to go, but I figured the solo release is something that would be worth you guys knowing about. So all that said, guys, again, thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to come back to the Pop Culture Playhouse next week for advanced sneak peeks at Scream Factory's Blu-ray release of Leviathan, Tromo's upcoming Blu-ray release for Blood-Sucking Freaks, the Nicolas Cage and Danny Glover star Rage, and the upcoming animated film Adventure Planet. All this and more, so sit tight, and we'll see you guys next time at Mike's Pop Culture Playhouse.